Hey, well, I'ma just do what I. Hey, I'ma just do what I. Okay, I'ma just do what I.
We know that the wealth gap between the black people and white people is a huge significance, and it hasn't really changed too much, in the past couple of years, 10 to 20 years. Why is that? What are we doing with our money? How are we spending our money? And that goes into play of how often does the black dollar stay within the black community? Mm-hmm. In other communities, it's days. It could be weeks. For us, it's only 6 hours. Mm. So we have to change that. We have to start reinvesting in ourselves. And this is not just talking about celebrities. No, this is everybody. If you want to start a business, you want to start buying back homes, do it in your community. Do it in the communities in which they're extremely, extremely poor. What did the Black Panthers do? They created, the free lunch program. They had doctors, lawyers, nurses. They had everyone doing everything. We just choose, for some reason, not to invest in ourselves. We rather put our dollars towards other communities. Now we're starting to see more black women in particular becoming entrepreneurs and creating, beauty salons, beauty shops, hair stores, all these different things. And we're no longer seeing a large market of, Asian people that are predominantly owning these things. Although they still do, but that's a part of it. And it's just like, even if we see communities starting to redevelop, we need to start investing our money in them. So instead of buying from a huge well-known brand, support your friends locally. No one's saying don't ever buy from them, but it doesn't take much to support. Mm. And it's just like, if we see a lot of people are getting into trading, a lot of young people, small classes, that takes initiative. Who wants to do that? It's only going to happen if we start to see that we want to change something for ourselves.
Okay. So, what do you plan on doing to make sure those goals become a reality?
That's a difficult question. I'm only 24.
Okay.
So, I think me in particular, schooling is very important to me, education, and not just focusing on the general education the country presents us. Obviously, it's different from state to state. I do want to open up my own school one day and focus on different things that we're not learning. Financial literacy being a huge thing, finding what kids are excited about, what they want, and presenting that earlier on as middle school.
Yeah, I was thinking something like that too.
I think that's really important. A lot of these things that we're now learning, let's say people in their 20s, we could have learned a long time ago. Our education system is a hot mess. That goes back to after school programs. Even in college, that's something that I struggled with because I've been a huge advocate for black excellence, and criminal justice. And all these things, even at the college level, we cannot just be upset about the issues that are happening, whether or not that's locally or that's federally. We have to do something about it. So if we want to invest in ourselves, we want to change things, that's on college students as well. I'm talking about undergrads, grads, and professors. And for me, I had a huge problem because I was teaching people about Black Wall Street, about investing in ourselves, and people wouldn't show up. Mm. But they had these conversations on social media. It's only so much if we continue to talk. Talking is nothing without action. Mm. So what are we going to actually do to change it?
Okay. Wow.
Well, I think there's so many things that you just talked about. One of the things, what you was talking about, the hair salons, it's a multi-million-dollar industry that the Asians come into the black community and do. They ain't doing it in their own community. Right. They come into the black community, and the black community have no problem spending money on their hair and their nails or whatever. So yes, black women or black even guys, whoever it is, I don't care who it is, you can start that business and put that money in. I think one of the problems the black community has as far as business is sometimes you try to support, and the customer service aspect of it, they don't have a clue. And they need some classes on how to run customer service. Okay. Don't get me wrong, you can stand your ground, but at some point you have to, or if you want people to come back to your business, you have to provide them with a type of service. Mm-hmm. All right, you just can't go by your name or whatever that you're selling. You have to also provide a service. And sometimes when you try to go and give money to the black businesses, the way they approach, it's like they treat you as if they're doing you the favor. Mm-hmm. All right? No, it's the other way around. I'm doing you the favor. I'm coming for your business. and I'm trying to support you. But if you don't send that back to me, and you treat me as if, if you don't come back, it's okay, well then, you know what, I'm not going to come back. Mm-hmm. And where other people, they'll take your money and they'll treat you as nice as they want in front of you, and then they act totally different when you walk away. Well, that's how black people need to act. No, really. I mean, take the money and then the person leaves, you do whatever, but you got to try to have people to come back. The only way businesses stay around is you have repeat customers. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get new customers all the time. You have to have people who want to come to your store and want to be a part of your businesses. All right, so that's one aspect. The other aspect, when she talked about education, she said middle school, you got to start as young as elementary school. All right, because it's funny, because I just had this conversation with my son the other day. I'm mad that I've learned more now in my 50s than what schools taught me when I was in elementary and high school.
Like, as far as what? Like
Black history and anything. Because the only time you heard about Malcolm X in Black history was when they made a comparison to Martin Luther King. They never talked about him on his own. All right? It was always that he was anti-this, anti-this. But Martin Luther King, he was the nice guy. No, let me tell you something. Malcolm X wasn't wrong. Okay? So, but they didn't want to tell you that. Everything that we taught, that I've learned from elementary school on, was a lie. It's all a lie. Columbus Day is a lie. Let's call it what it is. How can you say you discovered something if there's a group of people already there?
For real. All
right? But they don't teach you that in school. They say that he discovered this. But that's not the case. So, you have to rip up the whole system. I mean, it's just got to be blown up to bits. The problem is, as I always say, if a person is in power and they have to give up their power for you to have success, there's a very good chance they're not going to do that. They don't want to do that. Why? This is how they've grown their empire. And now you're asking them or trying to take from them that what you're trying to get, they're not going to do it. I don't care what race you are. A lot of people are not going to do that.
So how would you suggest that we change up the curriculum when it comes to Black history?
Well, listen, again, this is a matter of you have to break down. And the same way we keep talking about Napoleon in the 1800s and Hitler and all them, all right, why can't we talk about the black kings and queens that came out of Africa? Why can't we start there and then you work your way up? And then when you get to, because some people think the civil rights movement was 100 years ago. It wasn't that, it was only 50 years ago. It wasn't that long ago. All right, so, when you're trying, I'm not really concerned about what Napoleon went through in the 1800s, and I don't care what he went through. Why don't we talk about what our communities have gone through in the last 50 years and what we need to do? Let's talk about the Black Panthers. They don't talk about the Black Panthers in school.
I mean, that is a touchy subject, though.
No, it's not. What's so touchy about it? They were trying to help their communities get better.
But the way they did it may not be easily digestible for children.
Well, let me ask you this. They got no problem talking about the Ku Klux Klan?
Okay. You got a point.
They got no problem talking about them?
You got a point there.
So, again, they want to pick and choose what they want to talk about. And even then, when they talk about them, they don't talk about them as a terrorist group.
Right. Exactly.
They never talk about them. They talk about, the nice people over there. Excuse me? What? Do you not know that to this day, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, it might have happened last year, lynching is still not a federal crime? How is that possible? How is that possible that lynching is not a federal crime? Because again, people pick and choose what they think is important. And as long as we can keep a group of people, all right, and it's our group, at bay, people feel comfortable. Because I think people really believe that if you give black people that financial backing, it's going to be it will be a whole different world.
Yeah, I think people are afraid of that.
Oh, they're 100% afraid of it. And I always say, they're lucky we only want equality and not reparations for what you did. You ought to feel lucky we just want to be equal.
For real. Wow. I'm loving this episode, man. So, do you believe that the next generation is fit to carry out some of these improvements that we're talking about?
It's not just one generation. It's multiple generations that have to come together to do the work. And even when we do the work, we're not going to see the working within our lifetime. It's not going to happen that way. It's probably going to take maybe 100 years, and there's so much work that has to be done. This idea of curriculum. The curriculum is not just an issue in just K through 12 education. It's also an issue in college institutions as well. You know, so we were talking about the Black Panthers, for example, and you were saying, well, it's difficult, you know, to talk about to cater to children. That's not necessarily really true. We can make almost anything acceptable for children with the right educators at the forefront doing so. You know, and it's even crazy how they considered Black Panthers to be domestic terrorists. You know, it's only now they're starting to recognize the KKK as a domestic terrorist group. And so I took a class, you know, during my undergrad year, and that's what we focused on. And I posed a question to my professor, why are they considered, you know, domestic terrorist group? This doesn't make any sense. You know, the FBI created a whole federal organization just for them. Just for them, period.
The Black Panthers?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what the name of it was, but I've read multiple books on that.
Mm-hmm.
And so back to what you were saying, just about education, curriculums, you know, keeping this one particular identity of Black people. They're doing it on purpose. You know, it's white supremacy, white institutions, all of these things. Why? Because they see Black people, in my personal opinion, as the most flourishing and dominant race.
Who does?
White people. Because if that wasn't the case, they wouldn't work so hard to continue to oppress us. You know, it's the danger of a single story. What's her name? She's an African woman, Chismadia Adichie. She talks about that. And it's creating the story to view African Americans and also Africans as one particular thing. So if they view us as one particular thing and only teach us somewhere in the middle of our history of what we are, then we're always going to believe we're that thing. And other people are also going to believe that. So where do we start? Of course we want to change, you know, curriculums, but is it really going to happen? Like you said, that someone's going to have to give up that power. They're never going to give up that power. They're never going to teach us about ourselves. We have to come together with other people of color to say, here is our story. This is where it actually starts. You know, a lot of people say that, oh, they took slaves. No, we were not slaves. We were kings and queens. That's who we were. Our identity has been lost, stolen, and reconstructed to fit the white man's agenda. So, of course, our curriculum is going to be a copy of that. So how do we do that? It's really hard, but that's where it starts with, you know, not just educating your kids, but also when we become of that age, we can't stop the fight. The fight starts as soon as you become conscious. And that could be as early as elementary school. You know, and that's between multiple generations if we want to see change. We can't just rely on one generation because our generation doesn't have the perspective of our parents and grandparents. They went through things and they understand things that we're probably just becoming conscious of. And how do we also do this? We need to read, you know, theorists. We need to read sociologists. We need to read other educators, Pan-Africanists in order to do all this work. Everything that we're going through has been written down in history. What is really the difference? How much have the laws changed? Not so much. How much has the curriculum changed? Not so much. Incarceration, poverty, all these things, not so much. So unless we're really ready to do the work, maybe pull our children out of these schools, you know, start creating a homeschooling system for Black children and creating these financial programs, you know, reinvesting, you know, in the hood, and I'm not just talking about money, I'm talking about programs. Because when we talk about crime, why does crime happen in poverty-stricken neighborhoods? Because of lack of resources. So if we start putting back our resources into our communities entirely, that's when we can start talking about change. Because now you have generations who are starting to understand what we need to do to come together.